Climate change activists exposed Shell's reckless plans to do more gas and oil as the company already announced record profits.
Here at home, a pair of U.S. oil companies announced record profits Friday.
But how much? Just last year alone, oil and gas companies made $221 billion in profit. And that is huge as the global energy prices surged after Russia invaded Ukraine in February of 2022.
A democratic country has been invaded by its nuclear-armed neighbor on multiple fronts,
hitting multi-year highs in March and then retreating over the subsequent quarters to reach pre-war levels in the recent weeks. Even U.S. President Joe Biden thinks this is outrageous because the firms invested too little of such profits to boost output. The problem is, even though the companies are making huge profits, they're also causing damages worth billions of dollars annually by accelerating climate change and destroying lives and livelihoods all over the world. So what exactly is this all about? Well, that's what we discuss in this video today. So make sure to stick around till the end to learn a lot more about the grave danger of such insane profits and how companies are destroying our planet. Shell made about $40 billion, which is more than double compared to the company's previous year results, and they were also able to slightly top analysts' expectations. It is the UK company's biggest annual profit ever, all thanks to the strong fourth quarter performance by its natural gas business. By drilling more oil and gas, Shell is already making a huge negative impact on climate change. Shell, as a company that makes billions in profits, are already causing billions of dollars in damage by accelerating climate change. The company is destroying people's lives around the world, especially those people who are not even responsible for causing this problem in the first place. This is the reason why climate activists want Shell to stop more drilling for oil to counter climate change that they are responsible for. But again, when it comes to the practical side of things to work, these companies cannot stop what they're doing based on the demands of climate activists because you simply cannot stop using oil and gas overnight. But drilling more fossil fuels is not the answer, according to several climate activists. Countries like Somalia, Pakistan, and Philippines were rocked by climate disasters in 2022. It's sad to see such things happening to people who are known to create less carbon footprint than those developed countries. The activities by these oil giants can cost poor countries at least $500 billion and about 300,000 lives. When you look at the annual emissions report, Shell's emissions are more than the entire annual emission of Norway. We already have enough oil and gas available to keep things running for a while until we find a way to switch to clean energy completely. Experts also suggest that drilling for more oil and gas won't drive down energy costs. So it's high time for us to focus on several alternatives instead of drilling new wells. But it's easier said than done. Oil and gas companies still hold a very dominant position in the energy market, and they still continue to play an influential role in the global economy as the world's primary fuel sources. The processes and systems involved in producing and distributing oil and gas are extremely complex, requiring a lot of capital and state-of-the-art technology. Even in public stock exchanges, gas companies still remain as one of the most heavily traded public companies. But that doesn't mean that these companies face zero risks. There are several risks when it comes to dealing with oil, as this resource alone can trigger a world war if not done right. Investors of the oil and gas companies need to assess the risks that the company might face depending on the location. The long-term risk for the companies that deal with oil and gas would be the depletion of natural supply. But again, companies are discovering new sources for oil, and that is the good news. Then there's the short-term risk for such companies, like the political situations that could disrupt supply and demand. Politics play a huge role in the oil prices because it can affect the demand and supply of oil in the regulatory sense. Typically, an oil and gas company is covered by a range of regulations that limit how extraction is done. This set of laws and regulations can change depending on where the company operates. Companies face more risk when they're working on sites away from their home country. This is the reason why oil and gas companies tend to prefer countries with stable political systems to enforce long-term leases. But then there are some companies that still prefer to choose countries where oil and gas is readily available without taking into account the political risk associated with their decision. As a result, several issues arise, including sudden nationalization or shifting political winds that may totally change the regulatory environment. The companies have to deal with geological risks too. Geological risks simply refers to the difficulty of extraction and the possibility that the accessible reserves in any deposit will be smaller than what was initially estimated, which means all the investments will go in vain. This is the reason why geologists work extremely hard to minimize geological risk by testing frequently so that estimates will be more accurate. We already used up most of our sources for oil and gas. Some countries have a total monopoly over those sources, which is why companies are now drilling in less friendly environments like, for example, like a platform in the middle of an undulating ocean. So these companies are forced to come up with a wide variety of unconventional sources of oil and gas extraction techniques that helped us squeeze most out of what we have today. Then you have the price risk. The price of oil and gas is the primary factor in deciding whether a reserve is economically feasible or not. The higher the geological barriers for extractions, the higher the costs will be too. This is because unconventional extraction usually costs more than a vertical drill down to deposit. It is not like oil and gas companies will call off a project that becomes unprofitable due to a price dip. Then you have the demand and supply risk, which is very real for oil and gas companies, just like every other business out there. Operations take a lot of capital and a lot of time to get going, and they're not easy to shut down if the prices go down. The uneven nature of production also makes the prices of gas and oil extremely volatile. Then you have other economic factors that you need to take into consideration, like financial crisis and macroeconomic factors, like drying up of capital or anything that might affect the industry, independently of the usual price risk. Then you have the operation cost. This can fluctuate based on where the companies are operating. Oil and gas companies also struggle to find and retain several qualified workers, especially if they want to acquire the right talent. To do so, they need to invest a lot of money in finding the best of the best. So it's clear that all gas companies require a lot of capital, which is the reason why we have very few players all the time. Ultimately, you cannot live without crude oil, as it is used to make all the petroleum products that we already use. Let's say the ones in your car, trucks, airplanes, or even to heat your home. Petroleum products are also used to create medicines and plastic. So it's clear that most of these products make our lives a lot easier. But this doesn't mean that everything is good about these products, because finding, producing, and moving crude oil has always had negative impacts on the environment. Even with all the technological advancements, when it comes to production exploration, production and transportation of oil, along with several safety and environmental laws and regulations to control the harmful effects of oil extraction, exploring and drilling of oil may disturb the land and marine ecosystems. Seismic techniques used to explore oil under the ocean may harm aquatic animals. Drilling an oil well on land often requires clearing an area of vegetation. But the technology that we have today could increase the efficiency of exploration during activities, which in turn reduces the effects on the environment. With satellites, global positioning systems, remote sensing devices, 3D and 4D seismic technologies, and so much more, it's now possible to discover all results while drilling a few exploratory wells. Then you have hydraulic fracturing, which is an oil production technique that's used to produce oil from shale and other tight geological formations. This technique alone helped the United States to significantly increase domestic oil production and reduce the U.S. oil imports. Even then, it cannot fix issues like oil spills which happen during the transportation phase. This happens as a result of accidents in oil wells or in the pipelines, ships, trains, and trucks that move oils from wells to refineries. Oil spills are known to contaminate soil and water, and they can have devastating consequences with explosions and fires. The federal government and industries are already developing standards, regulations, and several procedures to reduce the potential for these types of accidents and spills to even take place in the first place, and to clean them up in case they occur. And yes, we are moving towards a completely electric future. But that doesn't mean that the demand for energy, oil and gas, or energy in general, is going to decline anytime soon, because they still play a major part in fulfilling the current demand for energy, as most of the electricity that we use today are still derived from non-renewable sources of energy. That's it for this video. Do you think there could be an active volcano on Mars? Let us know in the comments down below. Subscribe and we will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.